Jill Krutick, welcome to the latest version. I am so glad to have you on the show today because to me, what you are doing really exemplifies what the latest version is all about. You know, when we talk about taking midlife pivots or reinventing ourselves or going back and finding those early passions that we had left behind at some point and want to return to, your story is really inspiring. and not only did you do it just to, satisfy your own, desire to paint and pursue those artistic passions, but you've done it at a level that has been very successful. And so I'm really interested in talking to you about how you did that and all of that. You left a 17-year career as a financial analyst to become a full-time artist. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about what that earlier career was like and maybe what life was like for you when you, as a full-time Wall Street person, or however you would describe yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here with you today and talking about my journey. It's been a fun, exciting one and completely unplanned. It's just been a great adventure.
Wow.
But to begin, the days on Wall Street were very intense. I was a stock analyst specializing in entertainment and leisure companies. So I got paid to go down to Disney World for analyst meetings.
Oh, not many people get that job. So you got to go to Disneyland as, for professional reasons and not for fun, right?
Absolutely. Analyst meetings were held almost annually down at Disney World. So it was unusual to get that particular grouping of companies. So I was very fortunate, but at the same time, the level of intensity was as high as you can imagine. I raised my 2 children while working on Wall Street, but I always made an effort to be home for dinner and there for all the important school events and other life cycle events. So being in research, I actually had some level of control over my time. But coming home and then working late into the evenings was a very common occurrence.
Yeah.
So not to mention all the travel attached to it. So it was a very intense time, but rewarding at the same time.
It also sounds like a big responsibility. Like if people are looking to you to, do I buy this stock or not? And, you come out with your opinion and maybe people buy stock and, really depending on whether your analysis is correct or not.
Yes, it was, there was a lot of responsibility attached to it. And all the brokers through the system were listening to your point of view. There was a sales force that went out to all their clients with the opinions that I'd have on my particular sector because I was the expert in that specific sector. And it was an unusual sector because it covered so many different sub-industries. So covering entertainment and leisure companies meant being an expert on the film industry and the video game industry and the cruise industry and the toy industry and the motorcycle industry and go on and on and on to so many different industries. But there was a common thread with all of them related to consumer products. So it was a lot of fun, but intense.
And in moving into your artistic life, it's actually you were always a painter. You were artistic as a child, and also very musical as well. I'm wondering if you think that early artistic training prepared you for the kind of an analysis job that you were later doing. Was there some kind of through line for you for that?
Yeah, I mean, I just naturally was interested in both areas. I guess I was both right and left brained, so to speak. But yes, I played piano from the time I was 6 years old onwards, and got to play at Carnegie Recital Hall when I was 18 years old. Music was actually, playing piano was really an amazing passion I had as a young child, practicing up up to 6 hours a day. And art was something that I enjoyed too. And my parents were art lovers and took me to many museums here and in Europe. So I grew to love the arts and also painted, but music was actually my number one love. But I knew that I wanted them to be companions through my life. And I did have an intense desire to be independent financially from my family. And so I went to Wharton undergrad and knew that if I graduated from Wharton, I could be independent. And that's exactly what I was. And I took a very business-minded approach towards that. But I always wanted to have the creative side involved in what I was doing, which is why I was very fortunate to have the entertainment and leisure stocks to cover as opposed to insurance stocks.
Right.
And then after Wall Street, I went on to work in the music industry for 6 years, helping take Warner Music Group public, running investor relations for them. So again, combining music and business. So I was on the corporate side of Warner Music and there for the public life cycle of the company before I then launched into art full time.
I wonder if you felt that the music was something you came back to, or it was something, I think about kids or maybe even parents these days who are maybe are less interested in their children being artistic because they think, oh, what are you going to do with it? You'll be a starving artist someday. You're not going to be employed, and that maybe there should be more of this kind of interest in encouraging young children and young people to see art as a viable, well, maybe not a viable means of support, but something that can accompany, I love that term you used, accompanying you through your life as opposed to something that you close the door on as you go on to be, a grown-up or, I'm going to put away this childish thing and I'm going to pursue a life as an adult, and the two are not going to meet each other.
Yeah, I mean, I was very financially driven for some reason as a child to be independent. So for some reason, I connected the dots early on. And maybe it was something my piano teacher said to me, which was, if you want to pursue music, it should be the only thing you want to pursue. And I had so many interests. And it wasn't that I didn't have the skill. I may or may not have had the skill. I don't know. But the point is that I had such a broad palette of interests from business, and I took an economics course in high school that really resonated with me, which is what drove me into the business direction, that I knew that I would always want to combine it with business, and that was truly my goal. So I was very fortunate. In fact, my first job out of school was at CBS Records. I worked at Columbia House Record and Tape Club for 2.5 years as a business analyst.
No kidding.
So there again, it was a combination of combining the music interest together with the business interest. And that was actually the first job that I took right out of Penn. Interesting.
Then is that where you got your MBA as well? Where did you get your MBA?
Yeah, I pursued my MBA at NYU at night while I was working full time. So I did it over a lovely 6-year period.
Oh my gosh.
Managed to get married in between, have mono in between, had a few things happen in between. But I got that MBA, which despite having already an undergraduate business degree, it was really more of a personal achievement than anything else, because it was a footnote in my Wall Street career where none of my bosses actually even recognized it as a change in my status. So really, Wall Street was, what have you done for me today?
Right.
Kind of attitude.
Interesting. So at some point, though, you decided you'd been working for 17 years. Obviously, you'd been very successful. Did something happen? Was it a sudden thing where you decided that you'd want it? This is it. I've had it. I'm going to do my art now. Or was it something that you'd been planning for a while? How did that pivot take place?
So it's interesting. The move into art was completely unplanned. So after the 17 years on Wall Street, then I did 6 years in the corporate world for Warner Music. And as that job started to get a little bit easier, of course, working in a corporate setting for me was a little less intense than a Wall Street setting. So I started having a little more time at night, and I started to paint at night. And my kids were teenagers at the time. Mm-hmm. And my life plan was always to be around when my kids were in the teenage years. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be home or really close by during the high school years. Yeah. That was sort of my long-range plan, which we all know those things don't necessarily happen. But at that point, I started to take some art classes at night at the Art Student League, and I started participating in some local art shows. And ironically, when I left Warner Music, they provided me outplacement services. Oh. This is after the company went private. Mm-hmm. They no longer needed me to be, an investor relations professional at that point.
Because there wasn't any stock if it was privately held, right?
Precisely, exactly. And the manager of the office said to me, "Hey, Jill, I know you like to paint. Why don't you put up some of your work in our offices?" So I said, "What a great idea." Oh. And so I took probably about 25 paintings. I put them up on 2 floors of their corporate offices, and the paintings started to sell off the wall.
Oh my gosh.
It was just like a crazy thing that happened. And then I, was just enjoying participating in different local art shows, taking the art classes. And I remember saying to my husband, I'm just going to paint for a while before I decide what I'm going to do next. And he's pulling out clippings from the Wall Street Journal. "Hey, I hear Electronic Arts is looking for a board member. You really should apply." And I remember saying to him, "No, I'm going to really pursue my art for a period of time." And I did. And I painted. I had a small room in the house, which grew to a bigger room. Then I took over the family room. And then I outgrew the house and started making 10-foot paintings and eventually moved into a professional studio. So what started as an idea developed into a real business over the last 12 years.
I'd love for you to describe your art, because to me, it's very sophisticated. It's not like you see it like a local art show where someone's doing a landscape or a still life or something like that. What you're doing is, I would say, to my eye, very sophisticated abstract art, and it's clearly caught the eye of collectors. People are collecting your art. You've had a couple of shows in museums, the Yellowstone Art Museum in Billings, Montana, the Coral Springs Museum in Florida. So you made this break in 2011, and less than 10 years later, you're already being exhibited in museums. I mean, that's really incredible. Can you describe for my listener what your art looks like? And I should also say, we'll have pictures on our website, thelatestversionpodcast.com. And of course, your website is also JillKrutickFineArt.com. So I encourage everyone to go over and look at Jill's art, which is incredible. But try to describe for me what your art is about and what people see when they look at your paintings.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a beautiful question. So my artwork is a reflection of all of my experiences, whether it be family eco-adventures, whether it be covering iconic branded consumer companies on Wall Street, whether it be reading storybooks that made such a great impression on me as a mother, songs, doodles, music, all of these things influence my work. And I characterize my work as, color and texture and balance, and really trying to reflect light and dark in my canvases. And I've actually put together about 7 different series of paintings or styles of paintings from atmospheric works to more geometric works, to more sort of swirl style works. So they've really evolved over the years. And while I continue to develop each of these different styles, they all sort of come together in a way. So you're picking the best of each of those styles as you continue to develop as an artist. But my career as an artist, a lot of it, I think where I've been able to achieve having a few solo museum shows. I have another one coming up this month, later at the end of the month, down in Virginia at the Longwood Center for the Visual Arts. I think a lot of this happened because of my networking skills. So a lot of what I learned in the business world, I was able to then apply to the world of art. Because the art world, it's crazy. It's like a mosaic. It goes in all different directions, and it's very hard to gain traction. And it's really about, developing relationships with other like-minded artists. So, for example, there's one artist in particular, Stephen Manolis, who was a banker. He ran real estate finance when I was a young analyst at Solomon Brothers, and he became an artist. And we reconnected years later, and it turned out he did abstract work as well. And through that association, he's introduced me to his friends, and I've introduced him to mine. And through that, I've met art critics and curators, and that has led to different opportunities.
Wow. Are there a lot of you out there, formerly financial Wall Street banker, whatever types, who have turned to art as a second career or second act?
There are a lot of people who have very advanced business backgrounds that are now delving into the arts. Another show I'm participating in right now, it started this week, running through the month of May, is called the MVVO Ad Art Show. And this is a show strictly for advertising professionals who love art and who participate in art. And this is a billboard show down at the World Trade at the Oculus Center. So you can see it up on the big football-sized jumbotron downtown, my artwork Trapeze and Clockwork. And those works will also be for sale digitally through Artsy. So there's a lot, networking is really the key to being a successful artist. The traditional gallery model is very difficult to succeed in. It's, less and less shelf space, as you might expect, given these times. And then they have a roster of artists that they're promoting. And it's very hard to become one of those, select few, especially if I don't have an MFA degree, a really formal art training. I'm mostly a self-taught artist. Taking classes at the Art Student League, most of it is inventiveness, trial and error, trying new ideas, learning from other artists. So it's a world that really is truly a networked model to be successful.
I was going to ask you about your lack of an MFA, because that is the traditional way is, the gallery owners, come to the student shows and they decide who they're going to, promote and exhibit, and making that connection as a student. And the MFA, I guess it's the aura around that particular degree, which you didn't have, but obviously you had something else, which was other skills, the networking and that sort of thing. What else do you think that that you might have brought with you skill-wise from your other career?
It's being an entrepreneur. As a stock analyst, you're basically an entrepreneur. You're running a franchise. So I have to decide which entertainment companies are the ones to be featuring, which managements at which events, with which kind of, questions and communications. So you're branding yourself as an analyst. I would write industry reports, specific, detailed reports about different events going on for companies. So that kind of entrepreneurial thinking and marketing and packaging is all absolutely essential to being a successful artist. You know, using Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all these different channels. And I just recently launched an Etsy store. So trying to make things more accessible for people at different price points, offering scarves and other consumer products, bedding that relate to my artwork. So it's really trying new ideas and being open and flexible.
Amazing. And yeah, the scarves and the bedding and things like that. There, you can get to that your Etsy store on your website. Just such an inventive. You know, you have a portfolio of different ways for people to come in and enjoy your work at different levels. Do you also sell? I want to call them posters or prints. Did I see that as well?
Yes, we do custom prints, all different sizes or size to, you know, whatever people need. We have, you know, greeting cards, activewear, and the bedding is actually super popular because, which is very interesting. And people try the pillowcases and then they graduate to the duvet covers. So it's a lot of fun, and just designing those products is super fun.
Oh, I bet. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're going to be seeing your bedding in some of the catalogs, I bet, that are coming out.
I hope so. I hope so. Yes.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of visiting your studio a couple of weeks ago. You were actually exhibiting some other artists as well as your own work. But what was fun for me was being in the studio and seeing your table with all your pots of paint and work underway, and just thinking, oh my gosh, how much fun it must be to come here and work and just be an artist. It's like living the dream. And you have, this beautiful, interesting triangular space with big windows that look over onto, you're in Mamaroneck, and you look over onto Mamaroneck's very interesting, busy neighborhood shopping street. It kind of makes me think, I wonder if this is what Greenwich Village was like, 60, 70 years ago, where it was, still a very neighborhoody place. It's kind of a mixed neighborhood with immigrant stores and customers, and there's a lot of foot traffic, and it's very lively. And I think it must be a great place to be an artist working where you're not isolated. You feel part of the rhythm of the street there.
Absolutely. This location I've been in for about 3 years. It's across the street from Metro North Mamaroneck stop. Mm-hmm. So it's very accessible for everyone coming up from Manhattan. And it's also, because the space, which was custom designed by Keller Eaton, who is the architect that I share a space with next door, super talented architects created this space, which has like 10-foot tall closets for me to store really large paintings. I put in a hanging system so I can easily change out the look and feel of the gallery. So while I do come work here 7 days a week, and you're right, it is a really fun, special place to come to, but I can show other artists. And I've just embarked on that in my space. And I'm working with Shim Art Network, who represents lots of different artists and artist groups. And I had an Aspen art curation for my first group. And it was delightful having a dozen super talented artists from across the country and being able to showcase them in a near Manhattan option in a lovely gallery style setting. So it's been really rewarding, and I just absolutely love this space.
That's, I don't know, it's so, again, entrepreneurial, right? Finding the next way to take what you have and come up with another iteration. of whatever it is you're doing. It's remarkable.
That's exactly right. Because again, it gets back to the networking piece. And that's why I've sort of reached this point, having had some museum shows and trying to now expand out even further globally. And that's why if I bring in artist groups, then I can exchange my space for other artists overseas or other galleries overseas that want to show their artists here in New York. So it creates this back and forth and shared capacity that makes a gallery less critical to the success of any artist.
Oh, how interesting. Jill, I always ask my guests for 3 pieces of advice that you would pass on to others who are contemplating a similar journey. And I'm wondering if you can share some of that. Share your wisdom. Of course, you've been sharing wisdom. I'm wondering if you have anything for us.
Yes. I mean, I think among the most important things is to be very open to new ideas. I think that's very critical. And when I say open, I mean the power of yes, I believe, is very substantial. So I didn't need to bring in other artists into my space and showcase their work. I could easily carry the space just showing my work. But I think that, someone came to me with the idea, they brought me the group, and it made a lot of sense. And frankly, it turned out to be a total win-win. And that wouldn't have happened without saying yes. So I think being open to new ideas is really important. Also being flexible. So in the same vein of trying new ideas. So trying an Etsy store, trying having virtual exhibitions for different ideas. And also networking, I think, is very critical to anyone's success, whether it be in the world of art or outside of that. And I use alumni networks very extensively. I believe that's a very important avenue that sometimes people don't think to really, take the potential for.
Of course, you were in a position where you could make this break, and maybe you were in a position where you didn't have to worry so much about, where's my next paycheck coming from? Do you have any advice for people who are contemplating this, but maybe are a little bit more worried financially what the impact of making such a move might be?
I think it's really important to pursue one's passion. And I mean, I had a lot of different interests, so it's not so crazy to think that I might have started in business and then ended up in art, because I actually believe each experience builds upon each other. So I would very much urge people to pursue their passion and to be very open and flexible about doing that, because I think you can weave it into whatever you do. And that's kind of the path that I took by weaving in all my interests, whether it be entertainment or music or art. It was always, with me, despite the fact that I was in these intense business roles. So I encourage people to be very open-minded. So even though I wasn't painting full time, I was still learning about the world of entertainment. So obviously there's it's a give and take. And I think that if you can be open-minded and pursue your passion, I think there's always a path to find.
Again, I encourage our listeners to go to see Jill Krutick's art, which is absolutely wonderful, at jillkrutickfineart.com. And, of course, I'll have a lot of information on Jill on my website, which is thelatestversionpodcast.com. And I really want to thank you, Jill, for taking time out to talk to me today. And
thank you so much.
And I look forward to following your career, and I hope to come over and see some more art.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our discussion. Thank you.
I did too. Thanks a lot, Jill. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.